So, hey, here we are. Welcome to Jack Kelly LinkedIn Live, happy and succeeding in the future of work. And I'm excited today to have Bettina Koblick. She's an awesome person. I profiled her in a Forbes piece, got to know her. She's wonderful. And for today, I really want her to share with us, because we always see and read about artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, and some, you know how the media is. Sometimes they're like, oh my God, you're going to lose your job. Or no, don't worry, it's going to create millions of more jobs. Everything is good. So I figured, who better than Bettina, who works at a place that deals with, and what would you call it, Bettina? Is it not AI, not ML? It's more like RPO. What's like?
Yeah, we call it RPA, but
okay.
There's a lot of AI and ML involved in it, right? So it's it really does leverage a lot of technologies, but it's really robotic process automation. It's RPA, ML, and AI. We can talk about it later. Plays into that quite a bit as well. So thanks for having me, Jack.
Well, my pleasure. It's great to see you again. And maybe you could talk about, introduce your company and that you specialize in this space.
Yeah, so I work for a company called UiPath. It's a fascinating company that was actually born in Romania and is continues to have a very large population there. So just a little interesting tidbit. What we do is we really unlock human achievement and creativity and hopefully wellness by automating redundant tasks. And redundant tasks could be anything from processes to very discrete tasks or really complex end-to-end, again, processes that would take a lot of time, but really are redundant in the big scheme of things. And we use a platform to do that. We allow citizen developers to build those process or to build those automations. We also allow, I shouldn't say allow, we also train a lot of people in doing that. So it's really kind of democratizing this notion of process automation.
Just this morning, I wonder if this would fall under the heading or it's too specific, so that we've done a lot of podcasts and it goes somehow. What we have to do is we upload it to SoundCloud, which then goes to Spotify and iTunes, what have you. And it takes time because you have to put a title on it. It's not hard work, but it's just time consuming. And my son Jake is he finished school. He's home now. He's kind of contracting with a firm, but he helps out. And so we're like snapping at each other because wait, how come I can't do this? Wait, why this? And it would feel, if there was some sort of AI that could just capture the title of the podcast, put it on there, and then upload it to whatever, it would be so much easier. Because otherwise, the manual work, it's not like heavy lifting, but it's annoying and it takes time. So is that kind of what you're talking about? Like, to get rid of those irritating, annoying, got to do it, but they're frustrating.
Absolutely, spot on. By the way, I'll send you the link to some of our stuff that he can download and start playing with.
So we could use that. Like, there's something that could kind of capture and take like like for this one, let's say we have the title of it, take it, put it on put it on there and, do all these things so we don't have to do it ourselves.
Absolutely. It'll take the step-by-step processes.
Awesome.
Now, it takes some learning as to how to build those automations. Right. But what we do is really have built an intuitive way of doing that, along with some practice. Those are exactly the kind of things that you can automate. And it's not meant to replace meaningful work. It's meant to replace or automate exactly that kind of stuff, right? The stuff that, is he better off thinking about something really interesting or, making all of this happen every time you have a podcast? I don't know. I think it's the former.
And that's what you mentioned. This is really interesting. I didn't think of it. So that it's not only you offer the tools, but you give the ability for someone, let's say like myself, to kind of play with it myself and tailor it to my needs.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And if I may just take it one step further, I'm going to be shameless a little bit about this here, but one of the things that UiPath does, and we do a lot of, is actually teach big audiences, and we have partnerships with universities, and we have partnerships with organizations that like Girls That Code and things like that, where we teach automation to people that actually then can apply it, because it's become such a big need in the workforce. So it also creates jobs for kind of non-traditional paths of coming into the workplace, right? This is now a skill that you can apply and actually go to most tech companies, or most companies that have this kind of need. I shouldn't say tech companies, most companies that use technology, and there will be a component of automation that they will want to use. So you could be losing your son to another company any moment now.
Right. So would you say, so in other words, there's a lot of needs within companies to help build, market, create, fine tune these AI, I guess, can you call them bots too? Like what's some of the?
We absolutely call them bots. We call
Yeah.
them bots. We name our bots. We have
Ricky the robot, right?
We have Orange the chat bot. Aren't you glad you called me bot, right? So those kinds of things, right? But absolutely, absolutely. And we think of a bot a little bit as not a little bit, but also as part of the workforce, if you will, right? If you start organizing the work, if you start organizing around the work, you'll realize what is work that truly needs human thinking and human intervention and human judgment, and what is work that is truly repetitive and task oriented. And once you've kind of parsed that out, you can have your bot workforce rally around the second, while humans are focused on the first. So it's kind of the next step in thinking how we design organizations. But I think it's a really interesting way to think about work, how we organize around it. And then most importantly, how do people then invest time in ways that are more meaningful to them, right? That are more meaningful, more fulfilling, more inspiring.
And so what are some of the examples like that your clients use, these Ricky the robot, Athena, aren't you glad? That's hilarious. Aren't you glad you called? What are some of the case uses?
There are a number of use cases around big end-to-end processes. So I'll give you one, for example. This falls into the human world or the talent world. So in talent selection, a lot of time, a recruiter will spend a tremendous amount of time looking at data, looking at resumes, looking at inbound leads, if you will. And then they apply judgment to that and say, this is right, that is right, this person is going to, or this CV is going to make it to the top 10 I'm going to present to the hiring manager. Here are the challenges with that. One, those inbounds come in every day, and oftentimes a recruiter will get so many that they want to put in front of the hiring manager, and then the rest go into the ether, if you will. I'm sure some are very organized about this. Second thing that happens, it's very time consuming for the recruiter. Third thing that happens is, right or wrong, we all have biases, right? So whether they're known biases or just inherent biases, we read a CV and we apply our biases to that. What a bot can do is actually automate all of that, that entire process, and on a daily basis, highlight the CVs that should be presented to a hiring manager. So now the recruiter is really investing time in building relationships with that candidate, building relationship with the hiring manager, making those introductions, right? Rather than hours and hours of digging through resumes and leave a lot of probably good talent not evaluated. So that's just one, it's quite a complex process, but it creates such a better experience for everyone involved in that entire process.
And you hear at times people will say, hey, my resume gets lost in these applicant tracking systems,
Mhm.
the robots are kicking it out. But that's really not the case, is what you're saying, is that if you have really sophisticated AI that's screening it, they're really honing in, because you want to hire somebody, right? It's not like your business is not to hire. You're involved with talent acquisition. You want to make sure that people, you get the best resumes. So with the AI, and now it's so easy to send over resumes. There's so many job boards, there's so many job aggregators, easy apply. So HR people get inundated. So this way, instead of just a flood that's overwhelming, it can really parse it down to find like the best people that fit the job, right?
That's
So
absolutely right. And I think we even think about when you build that automation, you then also just need to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't apply biases. A human builds the bot, right? And if it looks for words that are, I'm getting very specific now, but if it looks for words that are usually associated you know, with strengths in men, right? You can really start looking for that and tweak your bots and just really make sure. And I think it's just a beautiful way of combining the human mind in designing the bot in such a way that not only makes the task so much faster and easier, but also more fair, if you will, more fair in the process. More even keeled, less prone to being tired or, oh, I just don't want to, I just don't have the time at this point to look at 5 more. So it's very exciting to me.
it's interesting. So you raise this issue that's, could be very touchy, so that you could calibrate it to make, well, how can you calibrate it maybe to take care of unconscious biases, real biases, unintended biases?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, very simple things. I think you
Yeah.
could look for, and by the way, I'm not an RPA developer. I'd like to say I'm a really great one. I am not. But really interesting is just not looking for specific words that are really gender associated, right? Or looking for degrees where degrees aren't really necessary, right? We shouldn't be cutting off talent based on what I think are sometimes artificial or somewhat dated gates, right? So you really look for what the candidate needs to bring rather than our kind of perception of what they need to bring. So what our document understanding bots would do are look for those things that are very specific to the job and kind of strip away everything else. And I think that's the way we intend to look at CVs, but I just think humans have a lot of built-in biases, good and bad, right? But I think it's fascinating to me to strip those out, at least at the initial stage, right? Because otherwise you're going to lose out on some really good people, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And there probably could also be biases to the people who write the codes. So if they're writing the codes to search and they have their own, stereotypes in mind, it's not the technology, it's the person who's writing it that you have to say, wait, what are you doing? What's going on here? You're not making this fair. And also, is there a thing too, where there's so many things that people might not initially think about, is that, for instance, where somebody lives, you could look at a certain address and say, oh, they live in a nice area, so this probably is a smart person. Let's get this person. Oh, they live in not such a great neighborhood. Maybe not.
It's absolutely true. And there's a lot of research out there, whether it's a person's name, whether it's a person's, where they went to school, which clubs they belong to, where they live. It's fascinating how quickly our brains make judgments. And I'm not accusing, the world out there to be horrible, but we make these instant judgments that I think we're not aware of. And this is one of the ways that RPA can help.
Can I give you a real life anecdotal story that relates to this?
I'd love it. Yeah.
This predates, and you can tell by my graying beard, it predates, all this technology. When I graduated from college, I came back home for a while, and I lived in this place called Canarsie, Brooklyn, which never became hipster. And I'm still salty about this, that all these other places in Brooklyn became really super cool. Canarsie never did. And because it wasn't close to the train to get into Manhattan, and it was a lower socioeconomic area. And back then, I would either fax a resume or, all right, I'm going to really date myself, put it in an envelope and mail it and put a stamp on it, which for younger people, you're like, what are you talking about? I don't get this. I don't understand. What is this envelope you're talking about in Stamp Jack? I've never heard this before. And then I'd call with a rotary dial to even show how old I am. And I would send it in, and I didn't get responses, right? Then I got a PO box. You know how they had mailboxes, et cetera, back then? Now then there was Kinko's or whatever. So I thought, let me try something. So I opened up, an account with wherever in a nice neighborhood in Manhattan. And guess what? I got all the responses. Is that wild? And then I got interview requests. Same person, same resume, same everything. It's just a change of the address to a more upscale, but it wasn't like a Tony upscale, but it was just a nice, nice Manhattan location.
Yeah.
And isn't that wild? And it changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And then I started getting interviews and get job offers.
It's fascinating, right? So there you have it. You just gave the best example.
It's
and
wild.
If you strip all that out, the brain just doesn't allow you to get muddled in things that shouldn't influence your decisions, right? At all.
And for machine learning, now what's the difference between, is there a big difference between that? How is that? I'm not sure if I understand it.
I'm not sure I quite understand it either, Jack.
All right. So I'm not the only one. Okay. I feel better.
But I can think of AI and machine learning as kind of the brain behind the platform. So it kind of helps organizations not only build automations, but it also identifies what should be automated. So machine learning is really involved in recognizing that kind of pattern and whether a task can be automated, whether something is right for RPA. But I would really have an engineer or someone that's better at this explain machine learning to you.
Yeah. For people who are interested, because what I'm seeing so much now, you probably see this every day too, is that with the pandemic, people have really reassessed their lives and their work. And some have just quit. 4 million Americans months in a row would just say, I'm out of here. A lot of people are just saying, hey, I don't want to do what I've been doing for the next 10 years. So if somebody wanted to pivot and get into, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, is that possible? Or do you have to go back to school? Or can you just take maybe some sort of online boot camp?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. We have a number of academic alliances with over 1,000 institutions. So there is a way to go back to school, and I'm not talking necessarily traditional university, right? There are definitely things like boot camps or more geared for the working adult or the adult that's not going to go back to school. Right. And we also offer a number of what we call citizen developer opportunities, right? And there's also some self-guided learning that can be done. If you just go to UiPath.com, you'll find it very easily. So there are a number of ways that people can learn about automation, apply automation, practice automation, and it doesn't cost a thing, right? So I'm happy to share with you at the end of this podcast how a person can do that.
That's great, because it makes it easier, but also for a career, it does feel, I don't know how you feel about it, but it just seems like almost overnight, everything, it's overused to say accelerate, but it's really, it accelerated. And now everything is online, everything is digital. kind of almost every company now is like a tech company. And it feels that if you don't have the skills, you could kind of get left behind. Is that what you see too? Because you're in this heart of this.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think there is a great kind of fear and excitement about all of this stuff, right? Oh God, this is going to take away jobs, or oh, this is going to create more jobs than we've ever had, right? And I think it's realistic, and has happened throughout the history of the Industrial Revolution, that there has to be a path for people to reskill. At some point, at some point, absolutely, RPA is creating many jobs. And at some point, it will also reduce repetitive tasks that are currently someone's entire job. So I think it's our responsibility as a society, as a company, as employers, to really lean in on this reskilling in a way that that helps with that reskilling of people. Repetitive tasks will never, ever go away. They just won't. And not everything is going to get automated. But I think a large chunk of what we do today is ripe for automation. And we do have that responsibility to help people make that transition. And there's quite a bit of evidence that RP actually does create a lot of jobs, but we can't just look at it in such a simple term. We have a responsibility to help the transition.
So I'm fortunate in the sense that because of writing for Forbes, I get to speak to all sorts of interesting people like yourself. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many tech folks I've spoken to. And I'm kind of new to kind of learning all about this tech space, but I would say at least I'm speaking to like one executive or chief people officer or CEO, and the amount of new innovative companies that are developing is mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. It's really wild. If you go on LinkedIn and you just look at the different jobs, just 2-3 years ago, you would just see the names we've always seen. Now you go through and you're like, wait, who's this company? And then you think it's a small little ABC widget company. And then you click to see, oh, 500 employees. Oh, 800 employees. Oh, 1,000 employees. You're like, I've never heard of this place. And I think with technology now, it makes it easier for all these companies to just, start up and take a chance and do something, which then creates jobs. And not only they create jobs, there's not enough people for the jobs now.
That's right. That's right. It's fascinating. And I know you mentioned the Great Resignation. I think when we talked a while back, I keep thinking about it as the Great Migration. I think people, you're right, they're leaving a situation that for whatever reason, right? And I think the pandemic and a number of factors have influenced a sense of burnout, a need for change, many things. But they're leaving. I think they're not leaving without a destination. Most people are finding something new to go to. So I keep calling it the Great Migration.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, I think you're spot on. There are so many opportunities out there, and the more that we kind of lean in, and the world is in using technology and using it in many different ways, it's just going to keep growing, and we need people to be in this space. I also think, again, we have a responsibility as a society to help more people play in this space.
Give you some examples. It's yesterday, I just had on the podcast this guy, Larry Gadea, who, interesting enough, because you said Romania, he was born in communist Romania, and his parents had to smuggle him out hidden because they didn't want people leaving. And if this is crazy, if you would leave, they said you need to leave one child behind to make sure you come back. So they had to hide him in the car to come over. He ended up coming to Canada, to Germany, to Canada, to the US. started a, smart fellow, wrote an app. Now he has like 500, 300 employees. So he's created all these jobs by building this app platform to make it safe to come back to the office. And that story is echoed by, I hear so many times. And one of the, and not to go on a tangent, but one of the frustrating things, Bettina, you watch cable news and all people do is argue and fight with each other. Online, everybody fights with each other. In real life, people fight with each other. Like, wait, why are we talking about, there's this just ginormous boom in entrepreneurialism and all these new apps and platforms and innovative companies that are hiring people and they're well-paying jobs. And so we don't focus enough about this. So this is what, so I'm interested in companies like yours that are doing things to help, make life easier, to empower people, to have them get rid of the annoying tasks, to focus on better tasks so they can kind of get their career. Because like if you're bogged down, like this morning, I was talking when I was dealing with Jack, you're bogged down with this stuff that takes you away from doing more meaningful work. It also stresses you out because you're like, oh, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be doing the cool stuff. Absolutely.
And may I digress a little bit? Yeah. And again, shamelessly talk a little bit about UiPath. So I think I mentioned early on, right? We were founded in Romania and by a small group of people, and the chief founder, if you will, who is our CEO today, Daniel Dines, also grew up in communist Romania, wanted to build a company that brought joy to people, right? That inspired joy as they work, and and he continues to think about what we do to create a place that actually, to create a work environment that actually allows more joy than frustration, kind of to your point earlier, right? And I think when people have more discretionary time, I think when people aren't bogged down with the mundane or the frustrating things, we can allow for more joy to come into the workplace. I know it sounds all kind of frothy and rosy colored glasses, but I think most of what frustrates us as humans at work is just, it's time constraint, pressure, right? Need to do more with less. And I think if RPA is used in a smart way, I think can really help with how people feel and operate at work. And frankly, in their own life as well. This can be applied to your private processes, if you will. So I think it's a real interesting opportunity.
And if we had this conversation 3 years ago, I admit it, I would be in the camp, knee-jerk reaction. I don't trust this. They're saying it's not going to take jobs. I think it will. I admit it. Now that time goes on, I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand. And I think a lot of times people just don't understand it. They hear something new. Like for instance, you say the metaverse and you'll have some people, metaverse, I don't want to go to metaverse. That's nuts. And others like, let me look at it. When cryptocurrency started, like, Bitcoin, what? That's crazy. I don't want, now it's like, should I buy it? How much should I buy of it? So it seems that it does take a while for people to kind of look at these new technologies, whether it's cryptocurrencies, whether it's AI, whether it's, what have you. And some people are quick adopters and go, I get it, I'm in. Others are like, and it takes a while. So I think this is the flow we're in.
Yeah, I think we're at a real kind of inflection point in all of this. And look, you talked about your gray beard. I've got my little gray coming here. I do think that, look, we're such creatures of habit, and such a tough thing for humans to do is change. But there's a moment, an inflection point, a tipping point, if you will, when the masses kind of go there. I think we're really at that inflection point. And I'll give you an example. As we look to the future and when ML and AI become more embedded in our platform, Daniel, our founder,
I hope he's not mad at me for giving that story. Now I feel bad.
No, not at all. He's a proud Romanian.
Yeah. Well, is it still
Yeah.
like, what is it now? Like, how is it over there? I don't even know. I'm embarrassed to say.
It's such a vibrant country. I
Yeah.
mean, it's unbelievable, and there are quite a few technology companies that are now being founded there. UiPath is a bit of a celebrity company because I think we were the first Romanian company that went public in the New York Stock Exchange, and a number of other companies are there, and it's bringing a real opportunity for a very well-educated population to stay at home and work rather than leave. So it's fascinating, but also obviously, really close to Ukraine, and things are a bit complicated at the moment. So we're trying our best to make sure everybody feels safe and looked after.
Yeah. How is it there? I mean, as a company, do you try to say, hey, we'll bring in, Ukrainian refugees? And also, I didn't know this until recently, just to take a step back, where another kind of thing which changed people's minds is remote work. So that, pre-pandemic, that was, I don't want to say fringe, but it just wasn't as common as it is now, obviously.
Mhm.
But because it's so hard to find talent,
Mhm.
these companies, like for instance, I reported on AngelList Talent, these places called deal and remote.com, which they do all like the compliance, the back office stuff, the taxes, paperwork, to facilitate companies to have their remote workers work everywhere in the world. And what I didn't know is that this was so big and so vast, and Eastern Europe, whether Romania, Poland, Ukraine, that there's just a super large tech community there.
Yeah.
That STEM is really big, and then very, and a lot of them know English. So they're recruiting, in Romania, in Ukraine, in Poland, and all those places to work at Silicon Valley, which is another thing, if you think about it, because of the technology that you could make it work. Now, well, you don't have to pick up your whole family and leave. You could say, oh, I'm going to stay where I am. Give you another thing too, in the Middle East, in Africa, in
Mhm.
Latin America. And some of these companies, what they'll do is they offer to pay you in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. So now you have tech people in these places, in these hubs, that get paid in cryptocurrencies. They're getting paid well, and they don't have to pick up and leave, and they can be with their family and friends. What,
That's right.
right? How much of a change is that?
It's amazing. Yesterday, I was in a Zoom meeting,
Mhm.
obviously, and two of our colleagues, I noticed two of our colleagues that are based in Ukraine were on the call. So a number of, it just kind of to go back to the
Yeah,
original conversation,
yeah.
a number of our people in Ukraine opted to leave, and we made that possible. And it was just so proud of
Yeah.
UiPath and how quickly that happened. There were also some of our people that wanted to stay, and they're continuing to dial in. It's just fascinating, right? And obviously, how and when and how much work can be done is right now a little bit up in the air, but they feel incredibly empowered to do whatever they need to do in this moment. And yesterday they were on a call doing work, and so it's mind-boggling to me how diverse our talent pool is, or our people pool is. And it is enabled by technology. You just can't get around it. It's technology that made that happen. That thing that scared all of us, and that continues to scare us around job creation or job loss, continues to actually make it possible for many more people to work in ways that I couldn't have imagined this 20 years ago,
Right.
Jack. I would have
Well, even
been
4 years ago, right? Even
yeah.
3 years ago, right?
Yes.
If 3 years ago, if you said, hey, I'm working for a company in Romania, and we have, and there's remote workers here, and they're getting paid in cryptocurrencies there, you'd be like, what? What are you
Mhm.
talking about? Come on. What is it? It's not a sci-fi movie. You're nuts. And here we are.
Here we are. It's fascinating. And just one little bit, we are now thinking about something even more future thinking, which we coined semantic automation, which where bots are going to be able to understand a user's intent, right? And figure out step-by-step guidance about how you should introduce automation. So imagine that's when AI and machine learning really kicks in, and semantic automation can actually make some amount of judgment based on the information it sees. It's just, it's kind of blow my mind a little bit once in a while, right? Yeah.
Because when you hear it first, you're like, wait, see, old habits are hard to break. Because when you said the first thing is, I'm thinking, as you're saying it, wait, what if they make a decision that's really bad because they're just, a bot? And then I'm like, wait, all right. So we just had this long conversation about how good things and we don't have to worry about it. But still, your first inclination is like, is that going to work? How funny is that?
Hey, listen, I love the Terminator series. Sorry if that dates me as well, but are robots going to go rogue and bad? I think it's always in the back of our minds. I think robots are a reflection of humans, so let's just keep them nice.
And I'd be interesting. I'd guess, and knowing, because my kids are Gen Zs and their friends are Gen Zs, I think if you would say about that semantics, they would right away go, oh, cool, that's great. Whereas I think, Gen X's, boomers were more like that first inclination, this could go rogue, Terminator, no. But they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. And
that's right.
Such a difference.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, the older I get, the more I just lean in and trust the millennials and the Zers and whatnot, as we wanted to be trusted years ago, right? So, and they do. I saw a young woman on TikTok the other day that was talking about RPA. It was fascinating. She posted a TikTok and said, hey, I found this great thing and I can automate my, X, Y, and Z. And I just thought, okay, it's another tipping point moment, right? When it's becoming, it's really becoming a normal thing. It's becoming something that a university kid on TikTok is talking about. So I thought, here we are. It was pretty cool.
So like, hey, we're doing cool stuff. We made it. You made it to TikTok. We're talking about what we're doing. And you mentioned about, so for people watching, if you want to kind of maybe pivot to this space, there's a lot of boot camps out there. Like, for instance, just the other day, I was writing about this Black and Brilliant and Code Academy, two different entities. With Black and Brilliant, this guy, Tony Efflick from Google, he's a Google managing director. And they partnered with Code Academy, which is like you could go online and learn whatever you want, like whatever kind of code programming. But then they offer coaching, they offer mentorship, as well as hand-holding, so that to help you transition into the tech space. Now, with the Black and Brilliant, it's more geared towards underserved groups who may have been left out, to help them get in. And by having mentors and coaches who've been there and worked at other major companies to kind of, they call it the cheat sheet, to say, give the inside of like, hey, here's what you have to do, here's how you have to interview, and so on. And with Code Academy, that they could really be able to kind of really roll up your sleeves and do things. And then also, even like, this blew my mind. I didn't know this existed. Like Goodwill, I always thought of Goodwill as clothes and thrifting. But I spoke to Steve Preston, the CEO there, and they have a whole program now for getting people, even just to get started to know, and I'm not being facetious here, to like, how do you get on Facebook? How do you do for people who really have been like really uncomfortable with technology, and then also to kind of start teaching the basics and then gradually learn more and more, so that if they're so inclined, that opens up other doors for the future. So those are just a couple, but there's so many out there now, so that if you are interested in pivoting, you don't have to worry about going back to college for 4 years or getting a computer degree. There's other ways you could really kind of jumpstart it.
Yeah, Jack, and I'm so passionate about this particular topic. I just took a couple of notes, making sure that we are connected with both those organizations.
Oh, are you?
I want to make sure we are. If not,
I'll introduce you to these folks.
Yes,
it's really
if
cool.
Not, I'm going to bug you after.
Yeah.
but the idea that I think we talked about it earlier, the traditional path into tech companies is the only way to go. It's just so outdated. And I think it's so doesn't allow for a lot of people to get into this. So, I mean, I love it. I love the notion of goodwill training people, and I want to make sure we're connected with them as well. We think that RPA, we have a number of partnerships I think I mentioned with you earlier, and far beyond traditional universities. I think we need to get into high schools and earlier education so that we start those opportunities early on. But absolutely, I love that idea, and would look for introductions from you.
I'll definitely, I'll you know what, I'll share, you know what I could do? I could share, you know, the pieces I wrote this way, you'll see them. And then if I have like their emails or what have you, because the cool thing is it's very inclusive. So it's, you know, these folks, and I guess they do these things because that's their personality. Hey, I want to help people. And, you know, we have an online course for it. So they're very nice people trying to help, and they make it very open, and you at all price points. So it's not like you go there and go, oh my God, I can't afford it. There's just so many out there. You could find the right stuff that works.
That's right. And if you, if anyone goes to our website, just uipath.com, the first thing you're going to see before anything else is try UiPath for free, see how, and then it leads you down a path of how can you learn about this, right? So we actually lead with that because we just think that this democratizing the ability to do this is really, really important and needs to be shared.
So you said about semantics, any other futuristic kind of tech stuff that you folks are working on that would be, even if it's not ready yet, but anything that in the wings that might be like, whoa, this is really super cool?
Nothing I can mention without having to sign my life away.
Interesting. All right. So that means there's a yes, there's something cool. All right. So that would be for the next time we talk. This way you can share. So anything else I didn't ask you that maybe you feel would be helpful for the people watching it here? And then when we kind of edit it and repost on social media that you'd like them to be aware of?
No, I think we covered a lot of topics, and I thank you for having me again. Honestly, I always enjoyed my conversation, my second conversation with you. So hope to be back. I'd love to talk more as the company keeps building partnerships out there, and we come out with more interesting things. So no, I think we're good.
Well, this is great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm so glad you had the time to talk, because it's one of those things, as we said at the beginning of the conversation, and myself included, where, you just get this visceral reaction, artificial intelligence, machine learning, what's this going to mean for jobs? And I think having a level-headed conversation, and this is what I enjoy doing these things, because you can talk this calm conversation instead of everyone screaming at each other, no, this is terrible. It's going to be the end of jobs. No, it's great. So just to talk it through so that people watch it say, this is interesting. I want to learn more. Let me check it out. And they may decide maybe it's not for me, or like, hey, maybe getting some sort of Robbie the Robot or Athena or Aren't You Glad that might make my life easier. So kind of bringing it to the attention of people. So I think this is really great. And I'm glad you're able to share and just break it down so that, I understand it and everyone else understands it, and opens the door. And then maybe it'd be cool. We get some messages saying, hey, so we kind of went to a boot camp and we graduated. Now look what the cool stuff I'm doing. And then we hear from people like that. That'd be awesome.
I agree with you. That would be the best outcome. And hopefully some of your listeners are kind of interested and think, I should know a little bit more about this.
Yeah. And if they want to reach you, I know you mentioned, but just again, so people try to find you in the company, what's the best way?
The company is uipath.com, and I'm at bettina.koblick at uipath.com. Very, very easy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Bettina. It was great speaking to you again. Thank you for sharing. And then we'll catch up when you have that super secret new futuristic thing, and that'll be the next one. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.